apostrophes. That's a tiny little mark that you see in words like it's, your, and their. It's a tiny mark that can have a huge impact on the meaning of the sentence, and if it's used incorrectly, can cause you to be the butt of a joke or to unfortunately be viewed as not too bright. What I want to do today is to go over 5 very simple rules with you so that I can demystify how apostrophes should be used, so hopefully they don't cause you as much grief. The first thing I want to cover with you is the fact that apostrophes must be on a noun, not an adjective or a verb. So when we're looking at a sentence, you can't put an apostrophe on a word that is not a person, place, or thing, which is what a noun is. For example, in this first sentence, the only 2 nouns I see are dogs and toys. Now that I've identified the nouns, I would next question, should either of those be showing possession? Do the squeaky toys belong to the dog? The answer to that is yes, and so I would put an apostrophe on dogs. But there's nothing that belongs to toys, and I know that because there's no word that comes after toys, so what would toys own? So I do not put an apostrophe on toys, even though it's a noun. In the next example, I see 3 nouns, and my question is, which one of these, if any, is owning something else? So the projects can't own are, so I know those are not going to have an apostrophe. Physics can't own the projects, so I know physics does not have an apostrophe. But Sydney can own the physics projects, and in fact she does. These are her physics projects that are so innovative. So we go ahead and we put an apostrophe on Sydney. On the next one, I have several nouns. And one of the things that I always see people do is they put apostrophes on Saturdays and Sundays or any other day of the week, which doesn't make sense even in this example, because what would Saturdays and Sundays own exactly? There's nothing that comes after them that they would own. You might see that if it was like Saturday's meeting or Saturday's festival, then you can put an apostrophe. But in this case, neither of these need an apostrophe. The word that does need an apostrophe, however, and you might have already seen it, is the word Chicago, because the book fair belongs to Chicago. So now that we've decided and understood that apostrophes only show up on nouns, I want to go over some specific rules for you regarding if it's singular or it's plural and where to put the S, or if you need to add an apostrophe with the S or just the apostrophe. So let me break it down for you in some simple steps. First of all, if the possessive noun is singular, you add apostrophe S. Houston, that's one place, and the population belongs to Houston. So since it's singular, I just go ahead and add apostrophe S to Houston. Travis, that's one person, and the friends belong to Travis. So on Travis, I go ahead and I add an apostrophe S, which seems a little weird because Travis already has an S on it, but it doesn't matter. Travis is one person, and he is possessing the friends. That would be read as Travis's friends. Makes sense because it would sound weird for me to say Travis friends. Same thing with class. Class is just one class, and the opinions belong to the class. So I go ahead and I add an apostrophe S, and I would say classes opinions. There, of course, is an exception to this rule. If you have a place name or a person name that is singular, but it's a person, place, or thing that takes multiple words to say, and the last word is plural and ends in an S, then you just add an apostrophe. What? What does that mean? Let me explain. For instance, Beverly Hills. Beverly Hills is just one place, but it has 2 words in its name, and the last word ends in an S. Even though it's singular, in our rule above, we would normally add apostrophe S. But because it's singular and the second word, or really in this case the last word, ends in an S, we just add the apostrophe. This would be read as Beverly Hills Mayor. We wouldn't say Beverly Hills's mayor, which is another clue that we wouldn't put an S with that, just the apostrophe. Same with the United States. That's one place. There's only one United States, but the last word in United States ends in an S. So we just add the apostrophe. We would say this as United States debt, not United States's debt. That's a strange exception. You don't see it very often. So if you just really focus in on rule number 2, you should be fine that if it's singular, you add an apostrophe S no matter what. And when you encounter these odd ones, just maybe you try to remember something weird about this, but they just don't show up that often. So I wouldn't stress so much about it. And to be honest, even then, most people probably don't know that rule. Now, let's talk about what if the possessive noun is plural. If the possessive noun is plural and ends in an S, you just put the apostrophe. So the feathers belong to the birds. There's more than one bird, so we're going to head and just put an apostrophe on the end. This would be read as birds' feathers. Even though there's not another S on here, it'd be read as birds' feathers. Babies has an S on the end. It's plural and ends in an S. We just put an apostrophe. Families, it's plural and ends in an S. We add an apostrophe. Nothing fancy going on there. If it's plural and ends in an S, put on the apostrophe, the end. What if it's plural and does not end in an S? Then what do you do? In that case, you have to add the apostrophe S. So magi, I'm hopefully saying that correctly, is a group of wise men. Magi is plural, but it doesn't end in an S. So what we need to do is add the apostrophe S, and this would be read as Magi's gifts, if I'm saying that correctly. Children, it's plural, but it doesn't end in an S. So we add the apostrophe S. Same thing with people. So the rights belong to the people and the toys belong to the children, so we'd read that as children's toys and people's rights. So when something is plural and it ends in an S, you put the apostrophe only. If it's plural and doesn't end in an S, you add the apostrophe S. Pretty simple. Now for the moment we've been waiting for, the reason why people are made fun of on the internet, the reason why my friends are terrified to send me text messages without proofreading it first. It's when we have apostrophes in possessions or contractions. And there's a really simple trick for this. If you notice in this chart that I've created, all of the contractions have apostrophes and none of the possessions do, which is weird because normally possessions have apostrophes. We just spent a whole video talking about how possessions should have apostrophes. But when there's a homophone, which is a similar sounding contraction that exists, a similar sounding word that exists with the contraction, and they're fighting it out, the contraction is the one that's going to win the apostrophe. The way to check this is pretty simple. You know that a contraction is taking two separate words and sticking them together and putting an apostrophe in between to show the connection. For example, it's with the apostrophe is it is. Whose with an apostrophe is who is. So a pretty good trick for how to do this is to try reading the sentence split into two words and see if it makes sense. For example, it is going to rain tomorrow. That makes sense. But I wouldn't say the dog wagged it is tail. That doesn't make sense. Do you know who is coming to dinner? That makes sense. Put an apostrophe in there. But I wouldn't say who is jacket is this. That makes no sense. No apostrophe. They are such a great couple. Oh yeah, put an apostrophe. The kids cleaned they are rooms? What? No. Shocking enough they're cleaning their rooms, but we don't want to mess it up by putting an apostrophe too. You are welcome. Makes sense. I love you are new hairstyle. No apostrophe. We appreciate that he is honest. That makes sense. Put the apostrophe. He left he is book at home. Nope. No apostrophe, plus it's spelled differently. So when they're duking it out, possession and ownership, contraction gets the apostrophe. When you're testing it out, just break it into two words and see if that makes sense. If the two words make sense, it's a contraction with the apostrophe. If the two words don't make sense, it's a possession, no apostrophe. So that breaks down apostrophes into 5 simple rules. First rule is that the apostrophe must be on a noun. Second, If the possessive noun is singular, you just add an apostrophe S. Third, if the possessive noun is plural and already ends in an S, you just add the apostrophe. If the possessive noun is plural and doesn't end in an S, then you add the apostrophe S. And the final one, when the possession and the contraction are battling it out, the contraction wins the apostrophe. If you have any questions, feel free to contact us on our website. I'll have the link below. You might also want to just check out that link because we have a ton of free, useful resources that you are welcome to use. They're topics that most people just generally struggle with, and I try to explain it in really simple ways. Thanks for watching.